All right, let's turn now to Illinois politics. The state's spring session is set to wrap up at the end of the month, but first, lawmakers have to pass a budget. And last week, that task seemed to get even more difficult. Here to break it all down is Ben Zielinski, State House reporter for Capitol News, Illinois. All right, Ben, figuring out a budget is already a headache. And then you have last week, Governor Pritzker's office saying that the state's revenue projections are going to be $500 million lower than what they thought it would be in February. I mean, how do you get that big of a difference in these numbers?
Yeah, it's really just changes in the economy that has driven down the governor's office's projections for fiscal year 2026 beginning July 1st. When the governor crafted his budget back in February and then introduced it, it was based on a December economic report. And obviously, the economy has changed a lot since December with new tariffs, growing consumer in confidence. And that's really driven down a lot of these projections here for the state. They expect just less robust tax revenue. A lot of folks seem to be getting ahead of tariffs on sales tax. So sales tax has been up actually in the last month. And a lot of forecasters are assuming that means sales tax is going to be down because consumers are spending now rather than in the coming year. So that's really kind of where we're coming from on this, is that the economy is just creating more uncertainty, and it doesn't seem like revenue growth is going to be as strong as a result.
So obviously some cuts are going to happen. I mean, one area that Democrats are considering cutting could save the state $330 million, but it's a health care program for non-citizens. I mean, what's going on there?
Yeah, this is a really controversial program. A few years ago, the state allowed non-citizens age 65 and older to be able to participate in a state-funded healthcare program because these people wouldn't be eligible for healthcare costs through other means through the federal government because of their citizenship status. The state expanded that to people ages 42 to 64, so a lot of middle-aged adults. And the issue, though, is that so many more people ended up on this program than the state expected. This became way out of budget by several $100 million. So this has really become a way to save costs and actually gain some political capital for the governor. There's been a lot of polls that have shown that these programs for non-citizen healthcare are generally unpopular with a lot of voters. And, in a tight budget year, the governor found a way to save $300 million by getting rid of this group for people ages 42 to 64 that are non-citizens. So the group that is 65 and older is going to stay in place, but the state's going to save at least $300 million by eliminating the other group.
Well, Ben, I know you regularly talk to lawmakers in Springfield. What are people telling you about all of this and about finishing by May 30th or 31st?
Yeah, that's really the question. May 31st is the last scheduled day for state lawmakers here in Springfield, and that's typically the day that lawmakers end up passing the budget. But getting votes on that budget is a whole nother animal this year. The last year's budget passed with the minimum votes in the House. So this year, in an even tighter budget year, I think a lot of people are expecting that this is going to be actually more challenging to get enough Democrats to support this bill. The vote threshold goes up to 71 votes on June 1st. So last year, the budget passed with just 60 votes in the House. So they're going to have to get this done by May 31st. But I think there's a lot of anxiety among lawmakers about if they're going to be able to get this done. We're really not sure exactly what this budget is going to look like at all. And lawmakers are really leaving the door open to coming back at some point later this summer or later in the year, especially if there's big changes to the economy, such as a recession, or the federal government ends up taking a lot of money that the state had expected away from the state.
Well, as Congress, as lawmakers in Washington continue to write bills and pass laws, I mean, that could impact Illinois' budget in the future. So how do you weigh all of that in as well?
Yeah, the tricky thing is the US House at least is taking this task up right now as Illinois lawmakers are trying to finalize a budget. So these two things are really competing against each other. We've heard Speaker Mike Johnson say he wants to be done with the budget on the House side by Memorial Day. So that really gives lawmakers in Illinois 4 or 5 days to kind of react to whatever's in that. But then we assume that the Senate's going to make changes to whatever the House passes in Washington. So lawmakers in Illinois are just kind of flying blind. The governor's assumption here is that the federal government is going to honor all the existing federal contracts and the money is going to keep flowing in the same. But the reality is that really may not be the case.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about healthcare as well.
Exactly. And that's kind of one area where the governor is going to cut those funds because we don't expect that money is going to be reimbursable from the federal government for non-citizen healthcare anymore.
Well, Ben, you got a tough job sorting all of this and following it. We thank you so much for your time today. We'll talk to you next week as well.
Thank you, Shelby.
For you guys at home, you can check out all of our political coverage for both sides of the river at WQAD.com underneath the As Seen on TV tab at the top of the homepage.